What you're about to hear isn't just another video, it's a mirror to your emotions. Subscribe right now, and let's walk this path of truth together, brothers and sisters. There are moments in life when you begin to sense something deeper than ordinary affection. Something that goes beyond attraction, beyond words, even beyond logic itself. It's that quiet, almost spiritual recognition that you have become more than just someone to them. You've become the one their soul longs for. You see it not in grand gestures, but in the smallest signs, the way they listen differently when you speak, the way their eyes hold yours, as if searching for something they've lost, and finally found again. We often underestimate how the human soul speaks, not through words, but through presence, through attention, through the silent gravity that pulls two lives closer together. When someone's soul has chosen you, it's as though they're drawn by an invisible thread, one that refuses to break no matter how far you drift. You'll notice it in their patience, their curiosity, their quiet consistency, the kind that doesn't demand attention, yet never fades. And if you pay attention, truly pay attention, you'll realize that this isn't just romance or infatuation. It's something sacred, a reflection of how deeply we're wired to seek connection, to find meaning in another human being. So when you notice these signs, don't ignore them. Don't rationalize them away. Because sometimes life doesn't shout its truths, it whispers them. Softly, through the way someone looks at you, remembers you, and chooses you again and again, even in silence. There are moments in human connection when you sense something that defies explanation. Something that doesn't come from words, actions, or logic, but from a subtle, almost spiritual recognition that something deeper is taking place. This kind of recognition doesn't announce itself. It's not dramatic or loud. It's quiet, soft, and yet incredibly powerful. It's the feeling that you've touched a part of another person that no one else has, and in doing so, you've awakened something within them that even they might not fully understand. This is the essence of subtle emotional recognition beyond words, the point where human emotion transcends the boundaries of verbal expression and enters the realm of intuition, energy, and presence. When you meet someone who resonates with you on that level, there's an immediate sense of familiarity, even if you've just met. You can't explain why, but something about their presence feels like home. It's not because of what they say, how they look, or even what they do. It's because your souls, in some unspoken way, recognize each other. You feel seen without needing to explain yourself, and they seem to understand you without demanding words. That's the beginning of a deeper bond. One that doesn't rely on constant validation, because the connection itself speaks louder than anything either of you could say. Human beings are emotional creatures, but much of what we experience lies beneath the surface. We're taught to express ourselves through speech, but the most profound emotions often escape language. Think about love, empathy, or longing. These are not just concepts, they're experiences that words can only approximate. When someone truly feels you, they don't need you to describe what's happening in your heart. They just know. You can sense it in the air between you, in the way time seems to slow when you're together, in the way silence becomes not awkward, but meaningful. That's when you begin to realize that emotional recognition is not about communication, it's about communion. This level of awareness doesn't happen with everyone. Most interactions in life remain at the surface, polite, practical, even pleasant. But occasionally, you encounter someone whose energy disrupts that pattern. Their presence awakens something dormant in you, something raw and real. They look at you, and it feels as though they see not just who you are today, but everything you've been through, everything you've tried to hide, everything you could become. It's unsettling and beautiful all at once. You find yourself more open, more honest, more vulnerable than you expected to be. That's because your emotions have recognized safety, a space where you can exist without performance, without masks. This recognition goes both ways. When their soul responds to yours, there's a shared silence that feels complete. You may not even be touching, but it feels like you are. Their laughter feels familiar. Their sadness moves you in ways you can't explain. You don't need long conversations to understand what they mean. Sometimes a single glance tells you everything. It's not telepathy. It's emotional resonance, a synchronization of feeling that bypasses the need for words. This is what makes such connections so rare and so powerful. They don't require effort. They just happen. And once they do, they change how you experience connection altogether. Science might call it chemistry. Psychology might call it attachment. Spirituality might call it soul recognition. But no matter what you name it, the experience remains the same. It's that instinctive knowing that someone carries a piece of your emotional frequency. You could be surrounded by hundreds of people, yet one person's presence feels different, heavier, more real. You remember the tone of their voice long after the conversation ends. You recall the way they looked at you, not because it was extraordinary, but because it carried meaning. You felt understood without explanation, and that feeling lingers. What makes this subtle recognition so meaningful is its honesty. There's no manipulation, no agenda, no strategy. It's not about impressing or achieving anything. It's simply about being. When someone connects with you on this level, they're not seeing a version of you you've built for the world. They're seeing the truth beneath it. And the moment you realize they still choose to stay, still choose to care, that's when you begin to understand what emotional intimacy truly is. It's not loud or dramatic. It's quiet, gentle, and deeply grounding. We live in a time where so much of human connection is filtered, curated, and performed. We share words, pictures, and opinions, but rarely our essence. That's why when someone truly recognizes you emotionally, it feels almost miraculous. You feel exposed but safe, seen but not judged, known but still free. There's a purity to it that reminds you of something ancient. The simple truth that human beings are meant to feel each other, not just hear each other. And in that space of unspoken understanding, healing often begins. Because when someone recognizes you beyond words, they remind you that you're not alone in your depth. They reflect your emotions back to you, showing you that your sensitivity is not a weakness, but a bridge. They make you realize that being understood doesn't always require explanation. Sometimes it only requires presence. And once you've experienced that, every shallow connection begins to feel empty in comparison. This is why subtle emotional recognition is not just romantic. It's profoundly human. It's what allows empathy to exist, what allows love to deepen, and what gives our relationships their true meaning. It's the invisible language of the soul, spoken not through lips but through energy, attention, and truth. It's rare, but when it happens, you know it. You feel it in your body, in your breath, in the stillness that follows. Because somewhere deep inside, you've recognized something eternal, and it has recognized you back. Deep, attentive presence and connection is one of the rarest and most transformative forms of human experience. It's the quiet power of being fully seen, fully heard, and completely felt by another person without the interference of distraction, pretense, or expectation. It's what happens when two souls meet in a moment of absolute awareness, when one person is not simply observing the other, but truly perceiving them. In that space, words lose their dominance because presence itself becomes the language. The atmosphere between you shifts. Time softens. You no longer exist as two separate individuals trying to communicate. Instead, you become part of the same emotional rhythm, moving together without effort. This kind of presence requires courage, because to truly be present with someone means to set aside your ego, to stop rehearsing your responses, stop analyzing what they might think, and simply be. Most people spend their lives listening to reply, not to understand. They engage in conversations while their minds are busy forming judgments, memories, or distractions. But when you encounter someone whose attention is undivided, whose presence doesn't wander, you can feel it instantly. Their focus feels warm, grounding, almost magnetic. You sense that they're not waiting for their turn to speak. They're here with you, as though nothing else in the world exists. This presence isn't loud or demanding. It doesn't rush to fill silence. It has patience, and it breathes. You can feel it in the way they hold eye contact, not to dominate, but to understand. You can sense it in their body language, in the way they lean in when you speak, not out of curiosity alone, but out of genuine care. In that moment, your emotions begin to relax. You no longer need to defend yourself or perform. Their calm presence gives you permission to simply be who you are. And when that happens, something powerful begins to unfold: authenticity. Deep presence creates safety, and safety is what allows people to reveal their truth. When you feel that someone is fully with you, your guard begins to drop. The masks that you wear in everyday life start to slip away. You stop trying to impress, to sound smart, to appear confident. You just start speaking from the real place, the quiet place that doesn't get heard often enough. You start telling the truth about what you feel, what you fear, what you dream of. And that kind of honesty is magnetic because truth invites truth. When one person shows up fully, the other person begins to follow, and soon you find yourself in a space where connection feels effortless. This kind of attention is more than listening. It's a form of emotional tuning. When someone is deeply present with you, they begin to sense what's not being said. They can feel the pauses in your speech, the tension in your tone, the emotions behind your words. It's as though they are reading the emotional music beneath your sentences. They notice when your eyes shift slightly, when your shoulders tighten, when your laughter hides a bit of pain. And rather than analyzing it, they simply acknowledge it through empathy. Their understanding doesn't need explanation. It's felt through their energy, through the quiet steadiness that says, "I'm here. I understand. You don't need to hide." True presence is also deeply healing. Many people go through life feeling unseen and unheard. They speak, but their words fall into noise. They share, but no one really listens. So when someone finally shows up with real attention, it can bring emotions to the surface that have been buried for years. That kind of presence doesn't just connect. It restores. It reminds people that they matter, that their feelings are valid, that they are worth someone's full attention. It's one of the most profound gifts one human being can offer another. And it doesn't cost anything except sincerity. There's also a spiritual dimension to deep connection. Presence is not just a mental act, it's an energetic one. When two people are truly present, their nervous systems begin to synchronize. Their breathing slows down. Their heart rates adjust. There's a subtle harmony that develops, one that goes beyond awareness into something primal. It's why silence between deeply connected people doesn't feel empty. It feels full. It's as though something unspoken passes between them, something ancient and pure, reminding both that understanding doesn't always require words. But to reach this level of connection, one must be willing to slow down. Presence cannot exist in the same space as haste. It's not about constant stimulation or intensity. It's about stillness, awareness, and attention. It's choosing to set aside the noise of the world, the screens, the schedules, the inner chatter, and to give your full awareness to the person before you. In doing so, you create a rare kind of intimacy, one that is rooted not in touch or conversation, but in awareness. This is why people remember how you made them feel more than what you said. Presence leaves an imprint. You might forget the words exchanged, but you will never forget the feeling of being truly seen. The energy of real attention stays with you. It's what makes certain people unforgettable. Their presence becomes a quiet echo in your memory because they gave you something most people never do: their full awareness. Deep, attentive connection is also a reflection of inner balance. You can't be present with another person if you're not present with yourself. To listen deeply, you must first be comfortable with silence. To connect without control, you must learn to let go of performance. Presence is born from self-awareness. The ability to sit with your own thoughts, emotions, and stillness without escaping them. Only then can you offer that same stillness to someone else. And when two self-aware people meet, the result is extraordinary. Their connection doesn't need to be forced or managed. It flows naturally, like two rivers merging into one current. Their presence creates a sense of grounding that's both exhilarating and peaceful. They don't need to fill the air with endless talk, because their shared silence speaks louder than noise. Each glance, each pause, each breath carries meaning. And through that depth of presence, they begin to experience what it truly means to connect. Not through words, not through logic, but through being. The silent pull of the soul, that unbreakable bond between two people, is something that exists beyond the reach of reason, beyond explanation, and beyond circumstance. It's the invisible force that draws one soul toward another, sometimes even before words are spoken or stories are shared. You feel it in moments that seem ordinary but carry an extraordinary weight. A glance that lingers too long, a silence that feels alive, a coincidence that feels more like design than chance. It doesn't follow logic or time, it simply is. It arrives quietly, without announcement, but once it's there, it becomes impossible to ignore. This pull isn't about dependency or need. It's not the desperate grasping that comes from loneliness or infatuation. It's far more refined. An intuitive recognition that someone carries a piece of your emotional energy as if their soul hums on the same frequency as yours. When they walk into a room, something within you awakens. It's not fireworks or chaos, it's calm certainty. It's as if your inner world suddenly realigns, the universe whispering, "This one." You don't understand it, and you don't need to. The connection itself becomes its own language, quiet yet commanding, fragile yet eternal. You might try to distance yourself, to rationalize it, to convince yourself it's just imagination. But that invisible thread keeps pulling. You find yourself thinking of them at strange moments, feeling their presence even when they're far away. Sometimes, you sense their emotions before they speak them. You know when they're hurting, when they're restless, when they're at peace. It's as though your souls maintain a dialogue your minds can't hear. No matter how much time passes, the connection doesn't fade, it evolves, deepens, and continues to echo in subtle ways. This bond often begins quietly, without grand gestures or immediate realization. It might even start with conflict, curiosity, or resistance. But something beneath those surface interactions keeps drawing you closer, urging you to look deeper. You sense that this connection carries a lesson, a purpose, something meant to awaken you, to shift the way you see love, self, and life itself. That's because the silent pull of the soul is never random. It's part of an unseen choreography that guides people toward growth, healing, and transformation. You'll notice that the connection doesn't rely on constant contact or reassurance. Even in separation, it persists. You can go days, months, or even years without speaking, and yet the moment you reconnect, it's as though no time has passed. The energy recognizes itself instantly. There's no awkwardness, no need for pretense. The familiarity returns like a soft echo, a quiet, sacred knowing that this bond has never truly left. That's the power of something unbreakable. It doesn't demand attention, it simply endures. At times, this pull can feel confusing or even unsettling. You may question why someone affects you so deeply, why their absence feels louder than anyone else's presence, or why your heart responds to them in ways it never has before. You might try to reason your way out of it, to suppress it, to move on. But the more you resist, the stronger it becomes. That's because the soul doesn't operate by the rules of the mind. It doesn't care about distance, timing, or logic. It only recognizes truth, and when it finds that truth in another being, it holds on. The connection can manifest in subtle ways. You might feel their energy when you're alone, hear their voice in your memory at unexpected times, or sense their thoughts before they share them. You might dream of them or find that random things remind you of them. It's not obsession, it's resonance. It's what happens when two souls are tuned to each other's frequency. That resonance carries through the unseen, reminding both of you that the bond is not confined to the physical world. It exists in the spiritual and emotional realm, where time and space lose their power. This silent pull also teaches patience and surrender. You can't rush it, control it, or define it through conventional terms. Trying to force understanding only leads to frustration. The only way to experience it fully is to allow it, to trust that the connection exists for a reason, even if that reason isn't yet clear. Sometimes it's meant to stay, sometimes it's meant to teach, sometimes it's meant to awaken. But whatever its form, its impact is undeniable. It leaves a mark that shapes who you become, altering the course of your emotional landscape forever. When you experience such a bond, you begin to understand love on a different level. It's no longer about possession or validation. It's about recognition. You see in them something that mirrors your own essence. Their strengths reflect your potential. Their pain reflects your depth. You learn about yourself through your connection to them. It becomes a mirror that reveals what lies hidden within you. The parts of yourself you've ignored, the emotions you've buried, the capacity for love you've been afraid to show. This is why the pull of the soul often feels both beautiful and challenging. It doesn't just connect you to another person, it connects you to your own truth. The unbreakable bond doesn't mean constant harmony. Sometimes it pulls you apart so that you can grow individually. The distance doesn't sever the tie, it strengthens it through longing, reflection, and self-discovery. You begin to realize that true connection isn't about constant proximity, it's about inner alignment. When your souls are in tune, even silence becomes a form of communication. You can feel each other's presence across miles, across time, through dreams, through thoughts that seem to arrive from nowhere. And perhaps the most profound aspect of this connection is that it doesn't always demand a traditional relationship. The pull of the soul doesn't always lead to partnership in the physical sense. Sometimes it's a spiritual companionship that exists to remind you of what genuine connection feels like, to raise your standard for love, for awareness, for authenticity. It awakens something in you that cannot be forgotten, even if the person isn't physically beside you. The energy remains, guiding you, shaping you, reminding you that the deepest bonds are not measured by closeness, but by depth. The silent pull of the soul is proof that love is not confined to words or actions. It's energy recognizing energy, truth recognizing truth. It's the invisible thread that links two lives in ways the mind may never fully grasp. You feel it in stillness, in memory, in the quiet certainty that some connections are not chosen. They're destined. Consistent care, without demand, is one of the purest expressions of genuine connection, a quiet yet powerful force that reveals the depth of someone's feelings without the need for words or grand gestures. It's not about dramatic displays of affection or constant declarations of love. It's about the steady, unwavering presence that shows up again and again, even when it's inconvenient, even when no one is watching. It's the way someone remembers the little things, how they notice what brings you peace, and how they offer kindness without expecting anything in return. This type of care doesn't shout, it whispers. And yet its impact is profound. There's something rare about consistency in a world driven by instant gratification. Many people can be passionate for a moment, attentive for a while, or loving when it benefits them, but consistency requires something deeper: emotional maturity, patience, and sincerity. When someone truly cares for you, their actions don't fluctuate with their mood or convenience. They don't disappear when things get difficult. Their care becomes a rhythm, gentle but persistent, like the steady beating of a heart. It reassures you without needing to prove itself, because its truth is felt through repetition, through reliability, through the peace it creates. Consistent care doesn't try to impress, it simply is. It's in the way they check on you when you least expect it, in how they listen to the tone of your voice and recognize when something feels off. They might not always have the perfect words, but they show up anyway, quietly offering presence instead of solutions. It's in the thoughtful gestures that don't seek attention, the small message to make sure you're okay, the patience in waiting when you're not ready to talk, the understanding in their silence. This kind of care doesn't come from obligation. It comes from a genuine desire to ease your world in any way they can. It's easy to care when everything is simple, when laughter fills the air, when energy is high, when everything feels light. But the truest form of care shows itself in the quiet, heavy moments. It's when you're withdrawn, distant, or difficult to reach, and yet they don't turn away. They don't demand that you explain yourself or fix your mood. They simply remain calm, grounded, and patient. They understand that love is not about control, but about allowance. They give you space without making you feel abandoned. And that balance, that delicate combination of presence and respect, is what defines consistent care. There's a strength to this steadiness that often goes unnoticed. It doesn't seek recognition or reward. It's not driven by what it gets in return. It's born from emotional depth, the kind that understands that care is not a transaction, but an offering. When someone's love is consistent, you begin to feel safe. You stop questioning their intentions, you stop doubting their loyalty, and you begin to trust the space between you. Consistency builds trust in a way that words never could, because it turns emotion into evidence. It says, I am here, not once, but always. Care without demand also holds a certain purity. It doesn't come with the weight of expectation. It doesn't say, I've done this, now you owe me. It exists freely given because the person's affection is real, not conditional. They find joy in your peace, satisfaction in your smile, comfort in simply knowing you're okay. This kind of love doesn't compete or compare. It doesn't need recognition because it's not trying to prove anything. It's an expression of genuine connection, the kind that expects nothing and yet gives everything. When you experience this kind of care, it changes your understanding of love. You begin to realize that love isn't about constant excitement or grand romance. It's about reliability. It's the small moments, repeated over time, that build something real. It's in the everyday kindness that remains even when emotions fluctuate. You see, consistency is love in action, not in the words spoken during good times, but in the steady behavior that remains through challenges. That's where real affection lies, in the quiet persistence of someone who chooses you not out of habit, but out of truth. This steady form of care also brings balance to relationships. It teaches you that love doesn't need to be intense to be meaningful. It doesn't need to burn brightly all the time. Sometimes it glows softly, providing warmth rather than heat. This gentleness doesn't make it weaker. It makes it sustainable. It allows the bond to breathe, to grow without suffocating. Because when someone offers consistent care, they are saying, I'm not here to control you. I'm here to walk beside you. That's a love that gives freedom instead of taking it away. Consistent care also builds emotional security. When you know someone's presence isn't temporary, when their affection doesn't vanish at the first sign of difficulty, you begin to open up in ways you never have before. You trust more deeply, love more freely, and heal more quickly. Their reliability becomes a foundation, not one that traps you, but one that allows you to rest, to breathe, to simply exist without fear. You start to realize that love, at its purest, is not about constant intensity, but about peaceful consistency. It's the calm after the storm, the steady hand that holds you when you waver. What makes this kind of care so special is that it asks for nothing but truth in return. It doesn't demand perfection or reciprocation. It doesn't measure or keep score. It flows naturally from someone whose heart understands that to care is not to own. It is to nurture, to protect, to uplift. They don't need to remind you of what they've done for you. Their actions speak quietly, repeatedly, until their presence becomes a source of quiet comfort in your life. The beauty of consistent care lies in its humility. It doesn't announce itself or seek to be admired. It's in the unnoticed gestures, the simple acts that seem small but carry great meaning. It's when they remember how you take your coffee, when they check on your health without being asked, when they encourage your dreams without inserting themselves into them. It's love expressed through attention, patience, and quiet understanding. And what's remarkable about this kind of love is how it endures. Passion may fade, excitement may shift, but consistency remains. It weaves itself into your days, soft but strong, until it becomes something you rely on without realizing it. It's the comfort of knowing that someone's care doesn't need to be earned, that it doesn't vanish when it's not reciprocated, that it exists simply because it's real. A sacred reflection of human longing for meaning begins in the quiet spaces between what we feel and what we understand. Every human being carries within them a deep, unspoken yearning, not just to be loved, but to be seen, to be known, to have their existence matter in the eyes of another. This longing is not weakness. It's woven into the very fabric of being human. It's the echo of something eternal, the soul's desire to connect, to find purpose through connection, to see itself reflected in another's soul and recognize that it's not alone in its depth. When two people truly connect, something extraordinary happens. They become mirrors to each other's hidden truths. In the reflection of another's understanding, you start to see parts of yourself you didn't know were there. Their attention, their empathy, their simple act of being present with you brings your inner world to the surface. You start to realize that your emotions, your hopes, your fears, all the things you've carried quietly, are not meaningless. They are the language of your soul, trying to reach out and be understood. When that reflection is returned by someone else, it creates a sacred exchange, one that transcends attraction or companionship. It becomes a moment where meaning itself is born between two lives. This longing for meaning is not a flaw. It's the driving force behind our search for connection, art, purpose, and truth. Every gesture of care, every act of kindness, every deep conversation we engage in stems from that desire to matter to someone or something greater than ourselves. We long for significance, not in the world's eyes, but in the heart of another. We want to know that our emotions make sense, that our presence has weight, that our stories aren't lost in silence. And when someone sees you in this sacred way, when they listen not just to your words, but to the feeling behind them, it awakens something profound inside you. It's as if they reach into your soul and pull your meaning closer to the surface. Their attention becomes a form of validation, not for your ego, for your essence. You begin to understand that you were never meant to exist in isolation. You were meant to resonate, to vibrate in harmony with another being who recognizes you. That recognition doesn't diminish your individuality, it amplifies it. Because in being seen clearly, you become more of who you truly are. The sacredness of this reflection lies in its honesty. It doesn't demand perfection or performance. It accepts what it sees, the beauty, the flaws, the contradictions, and still says, I understand you. That kind of acceptance gives meaning to existence itself. It transforms pain into wisdom, loneliness into belonging, and uncertainty into purpose. The soul begins to rest, not because it has found answers, but because it has found recognition. This reflection isn't always romantic. It can happen between friends, between mentor and student, between strangers who share a moment of deep understanding. It's not bound by circumstance or intention. It's bound by truth, the raw, unfiltered truth of being human. When someone truly connects with you, they don't just see your surface. They sense your struggle, your story, your light and shadow, and they hold it all with reverence. That's what makes the connection sacred. It honors your wholeness instead of fragmenting it. Human beings have always sought meaning through reflection. We look to nature, to art, to religion, to love, searching for mirrors that will show us who we are and why we matter. But the most profound mirror is another soul that meets us in authenticity. When that happens, life stops feeling random. You begin to see patterns, purpose, and synchronicity in moments that once felt ordinary. Their presence brings a quiet clarity, a feeling that your emotions, no matter how heavy or chaotic, are part of something larger, something divine in its design. This kind of connection also has the power to awaken parts of you that have long been asleep. Maybe you spent years numbing yourself, protecting yourself, pretending to be smaller so the world wouldn't hurt you. But when someone sees you with truth, it stirs something in you, a memory of who you were before fear shaped you. It reminds you that you are capable of depth, of love, of meaning that stretches beyond survival. The reflection of another soul doesn't just show you who you are, it calls you to become who you could be. There's something timeless about this exchange. It feels ancient, as if it's written into the design of human existence. The way a child looks into a parent's eyes to find reassurance. The way lovers search each other's gaze for understanding. The way strangers sometimes share an unspoken bond in moments of beauty or pain. All of these are expressions of the same longing. It's the same force that drives creation, compassion, and connection. It's the desire to belong not just to a person, but to meaning itself. In moments of genuine reflection, you realize that love and meaning are intertwined. To love someone deeply is to give them meaning, to let them know their presence has shaped you. To be loved deeply is to receive meaning. To know that your existence has made an impact, however small, on another heart. This reciprocity is sacred because it gives purpose to our emotions. It turns vulnerability into strength and connection into understanding. What makes this reflection so profound is that it exists beyond circumstance. Even if people drift apart, the impact remains. Once your soul has been truly seen, you cannot return to blindness. You carry that recognition within you, and it continues to shape the way you connect with the world. It becomes a quiet reminder that love, in its truest form, is not just an emotion, but a revelation. It shows you that your longing for meaning was never a void to be filled. It was a signal guiding you toward connection. This is the essence of human intimacy, not just physical closeness or shared experiences, but the spiritual meeting of two inner worlds. It's when someone's presence makes you feel that life itself has a deeper purpose, that your emotions are not random, that your journey matters. This sacred reflection reminds you that the human heart was never meant to exist untouched. It was meant to reflect and be reflected, to seek and to be found, to love and to be known. Life's quiet whispers revealing true connection often come in moments we least expect, when the noise of the world fades just enough for us to hear something softer, more honest, more real. These whispers don't come with clarity or certainty at first. They arrive as subtle feelings. A pull in your chest, a calm that settles over you when you think of someone, a sense of familiarity that doesn't make sense but feels right. It's as though the universe speaks in silence, hinting at truths that can't be spoken aloud. True connection doesn't shout. It moves quietly, unfolding in the stillness between words, in the pauses between thoughts, in the spaces where understanding breeds. You often feel these whispers before you can name them. You might notice how your energy shifts when a certain person enters the room, how their presence seems to still the chaos in your mind, how conversation with them feels effortless, as if you've known them longer than time allows. These are the moments where logic loses its authority and intuition takes over. Something deeper than thought recognizes them, something beyond reason says, there's something here. And though your mind tries to question it, your heart simply knows. That's how life communicates its truths, not through loud declarations, but through subtle confirmations that something genuine has found its way to you. True connection rarely begins with fireworks, it begins with peace. It's the quiet comfort of being around someone and not needing to be anyone else. It's the ease of silence shared without tension, The way you can just exist together and feel understood without saying a word. Those small, almost invisible moments carry more meaning than the grand ones because they're unforced, they're real. They come from a place where authenticity lives, and that's where life whispers the loudest, in authenticity, not performance. Sometimes the whisper appears as timing. You meet someone when you least expect it, when you're not searching, when you've almost given up on the idea of being understood. Their arrival feels coincidental, but something in your gut tells you it's not. You feel as though life has gently placed them in your path for a reason, as though there's an invisible order at play beneath the surface of chaos. The connection might start small, a brief exchange, a passing glance, but it carries weight. It lingers. It grows without force. That's how life works when it's guiding you towards something meaningful. It doesn't rush or demand, it simply aligns. You begin to see signs, not mystical, but deeply personal. The way they show up when you need them most. The way your thoughts seem to echo each other. The way their presence brings a strange sense of clarity to your confusion. These aren't coincidences, they're reminders. Life uses them to say, pay attention. Because the most important things often begin in the most ordinary ways, hidden beneath layers of simplicity. It's easy to miss them if you're not still enough to listen. The truth of connection is not found in intensity, but in awareness, in noticing what others overlook, in feeling what others dismiss. True connection also whispers through consistency. It doesn't come and go like a storm. It builds slowly, steadily, through trust, through attention, through the small gestures that reveal care. You may not realize it at first, but those tiny moments, a thoughtful message, a look of concern, the way they remember the things you don't even recall saying, are how life speaks to you. It tells you, this is real. Because real connection is shown, not announced. It's woven into the daily rhythm of presence and attention, in the way someone chooses to show up, even when there's no reward in doing so. There's also a quiet whisper in the way true connection feels safe. It doesn't ignite anxiety or confusion. It brings calm. You find yourself breathing easier, speaking more freely, feeling more like yourself. The walls you've built to protect your heart don't crumble instantly, but they soften. You don't have to force openness. It happens naturally because your soul senses that it's being met with truth. The whisper here is not in the intensity of emotion, but in the ease of it. It's life reminding you that real connection doesn't have to hurt to be powerful. It can be gentle, steady, and healing. Sometimes these whispers come through absence. When life separates you from someone you feel deeply connected to, the silence itself becomes a message. You think of them at strange times, and you feel their energy even when they're far away. It's not longing in the usual sense. It's awareness. Something within you knows the bond still exists. Life whispers through memory, through emotion, through synchronicity, gently showing you that connection doesn't dissolve with distance. It transforms, deepens, evolves beyond the physical. What's profound about these whispers is that they demand stillness. In a world full of noise, speed, and distraction, it takes quiet to hear them. The signs of true connection are rarely dramatic. They're soft, steady, and easily overlooked if you're moving too fast. Life doesn't compete with the chaos. It speaks beneath it. It asks for your attention, for your awareness, for your willingness to trust what you feel, even if it doesn't make logical sense. Those whispers are not just coincidences, they're guidance. They're how life tells you that something meaningful is unfolding beneath what you can see. In moments of doubt, when you question whether what you feel is real, the whispers return. They show up in gentle reminders. A song that plays at the perfect time, a thought that surfaces out of nowhere, a memory that brings warmth instead of pain. They remind you that connection, once formed in truth, doesn't vanish. It stays in motion, guiding both souls, even when they're apart. It's as if life itself conspires to keep the thread alive, not through grand gestures, but through the small, quiet moments that continue to echo long after words are gone. And the most beautiful part of these whispers is that they never rush you. They don't demand understanding, they invite awareness. They remind you that love and connection aren't things you chase. They're things you recognize. Life doesn't need to shout when something is real. It only needs to whisper, and when it does, something inside you always listens. And when you finally learn to listen, truly listen, to those whispers, you begin to understand that they were never random. They were guiding you all along, pointing you toward the people, the moments, and the experiences that were meant to shape you. The truth is, life doesn't always give you what you want. It gives you what your soul needs to grow, to awaken, to remember what real connection feels like. So when life speaks softly, don't drown it out with noise, doubt, or fear. Let stillness become your strength and awareness your guide, because the ones whose souls are meant to meet will always find their way back to each other. Not through force, not through chance, but through the quiet alignment of truth. The universe doesn't need to shout to deliver its message. It simply whispers, and those who are ready to feel it always do.